Hey everyone, this is Ryan from Blissful Bakes from E Squared Sweets, and this month we're making cranberry spice rugelach. First, we're going to start with the dough, and remember you can get pre-made refrigerated pie dough or you can get the ingredients for the dough. So for the dough, you're going to start with the flour. Next to go in is the sugar, and then the salt. So you're just going to pulse this a few times just to make sure everything's incorporated before you put in the cubed cold butter and the cubed softened cream cheese. Now I have a pretty big food processor, so I just dump it all in at once. But if your food processor isn't as large, I would put in a little bit of butter and a little bit of cream cheese, pulse that a few times, and keep adding until you can get it all incorporated. So after you get all of that in, you want to turn on your food processor or pulse it multiple times, and you're looking for a pea-sized crumb. So you don't want big chunks of butter or cream cheese, and you don't want it completely smooth. Now, once you get that consistency, you're going to want to make some room on your counter because you have to dump all this out. So take a bit of the extra flour and dump it onto your surface, and make sure you don't use all of it because we need some of it for later. So now you're going to take your dough and dump it onto the counter. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your hands and you're just going to mold this together like you're playing with Play-Doh into a ball. Now it just so happened that I didn't need any extra water, but make sure you have a little bit of 1 to 2 teaspoons of water on hand just in case your dough doesn't come together. It would still be crumbly. Every time you pushed it, it would just fall apart. It takes a little bit for it to come together in a ball, but eventually it will. Now here, I just used a bench scraper to get up some of the dough that was sticking to the countertop. If you don't have a bench scraper, you can use a spatula or the back of a butter knife to try to get up some of that dough that is stuck to the counter. So once you get that molded all together, you can take your spatula or a knife and you want to cut your dough into 3 equal pieces. And then after you cut them into 3 pieces, you want to roll them into a ball, and then you're going to flatten them out and make a dish shape. And you try your best to try to get them into 3 equal discs. If one has a little bit more, you can just pinch some off and add it to another one and reshape it into a disc. So after you get those equally divided, you want to get some plastic wrap, and you want to individually wrap each disc in a little piece of wrap. Now once you get those all wrapped, they're going to go into the fridge for about 2 hours, but they can go in the fridge for up to a day. And you're going to let them chill and rest. And while they're in the fridge, you can start getting ready to make the filling. So in the same food processor that we used for the dough, we're going to make the filling. So the filling consists of cranberries, walnuts, brown sugar, the spice mixture, and this is cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and salt, and your butter, melted. So you're going to put the lid on, you're going to turn it on, and you're going to let this chop everything up until it forms this kind of moist, finely chopped mixture of cranberries, spices, and walnuts. You can make it as coarse or fine as you like. Some people don't like biting into pieces of walnut. Some people prefer that. It's however you prefer to eat your rugelach. Once you get that to a texture that you like, you're going to want to scoop it into a bowl and set that aside for later for when we construct our rugelach. For our construction, make sure you have your oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and you have a baking sheet with parchment or baking spray or a silicone mat, and you want to take some of that extra flour and sprinkle it onto the counter. Make sure your dough's been sitting out for about 30 minutes so it's not really hard to roll. I like to sprinkle a little extra flour on top of my dough and on my rolling pin just so nothing sticks too bad. You want to try to shoot for about a 10-inch circle, but depending on how big you made your disc, 10 inches might be too thick or too thin. You're looking for somewhere around a quarter of an inch thickness, maybe a little bit more. It doesn't have to be super precise. They're cookies, they're going to be rolled, they're still going to be super delicious. So you just want to keep rolling your dough on the counter until you reach that about 10-inch circle or quarter-inch thickness. I like to turn mine every once in a while so that I don't get any flat spots in one area. And like you can see, it doesn't have to be super precise. Your edges don't have to come together. Once you roll it, you'll have that wedge shape and no one will see what the edge of your dough looks like. You can even take it and pinch the edges together. If you get a really big divide, it'll be just fine. So once you get it to that 10 inches, I normally pick it up, just add a little bit of flour underneath because when you try to cut it, sometimes it'll stick to the counter. So once you get it to that, you add a little bit of water on top. I just have a little shot glass full of water. I just dip my fingers in and lightly brush the top, or you can use a silicone brush. Take about a third of your mixture and you're going to want to put that right on top, but you want to leave about an inch of space around the edge that doesn't have filling on it. I normally like to press it in just a little bit because once you start to roll it, it will come off. So if you made dough, you want to take a pizza cutter or a knife and you're going to cut it into 8 sections. If you brought pre-made dough, normally those come in a pack of 2. So you want to cut that, and they're normally also larger. So you're going to want to cut that into 12 equal slices. So starting with the wide end, you're just going to fold it over on top of the cranberry mixture and roll it up all the way to the end. And when I put it on my baking sheet, I put the pointed piece facing down so that it doesn't unroll while it's baking. So you're going to want to repeat this with all of your dough and all of your mixture until you've used up both completely. Now, because some of the filling mixture falls off while you're rolling, you're not going to use up all of the filling mixture. I had about a quarter of a cup to a third of a cup left over. Now that mixture doesn't have to go to waste. It's perfectly fine. It could be eaten raw. There's nothing in it that needs to be cooked. So if you have yogurt or something you want to have with it, oatmeal, you can even put it on vanilla ice cream. You can put it on basically anything that you want to add a little bit of sweetness or a little bit of crunchiness to. Now when you're rolling it and your dough starts to crack a little bit, it could be it's not wet enough, but most likely if it's just little tiny cracks, you can just pinch them together and keep rolling and they'll come out perfectly fine. You can certainly bake this in batches because I know my oven's not big enough to have all of the cookies in there at once. You just want to make sure that each batch goes in for 25 to 30 minutes and you just want it to start to get a light golden brown. Sometimes the little edges might get a little brown first and that's okay. Just don't let it go too long and wait for the whole thing to get brown, because then the edges will be too far gone and they'll be burnt. Now once they're done in the oven, you're going to let them cool on the baking sheet for about 10 minutes, and then you can move it to a wire rack. After they've cooled from the wire rack, you can take them, put them on a plate, and you can dust them with powdered sugar. And then they're good to go. I hope you enjoy. They're going to be super flaky from the crust. You're going to have that chewiness from the cranberries and a little crunchy from the walnuts and that fall spice. It's going to be perfect. This is Ryan from Blissful Bakes by E Squared Sweets, and these are bakery quality desserts made by you. Enjoy.